Wow, Nvidia stock has been quite a ride for people lately. First of all, this stock has done better than I previously could have imagined. Their price has appreciated in the triple digits over the last year. It's just been a massive run up, a huge amount of enthusiasm behind this name. However, lately, the last, say, few weeks, it has been on a pullback. And now people on both ends are starting to question. Some who maybe felt like they missed out, maybe they're thinking, is this the time to get in, buy the dip? People who already hold shares are thinking, should I use this opportunity to get more at a slight maybe discount if this is a discount? Or is this the time to get out and take my profits? Is the sentiment turning away from Nvidia? Also, the underlying business, what's going on there? How might one evaluate that for potential value? So the revenue top line very much correlates strongly with the run up in share price. The share price has, of course, gone up in a sort of almost parabolic looking line. Revenue has kind of done the same. I mean, this is some massive juicing of the revenue. They seem to, every time you think that they've reached a high they can't possibly top, they go ahead and say, hold my beer, and they top it. And let's take a look at the bottom line real quick. So the bottom line, net income, follows the same exact trajectory as both the share price and the revenue. As the revenue goes up, the net income goes up in kind, and the free cash flow follows a very similar trajectory. So those people who said, hey, this company is going to just print profit over the next year or so, well, those people ended up being right. And people who were skeptical and who were kind of holding off here, well, hey, what can I say? We were wrong. Nvidia really did blow out what I think almost anyone really expected. And the question now is it feasible for them to do this into the future? So when we look at the valuation ratios, PE, price to free cash flow, price to operating cash flow, all in the 60s, all correlate pretty well together. Makes sense with Nvidia being low capex. However, I want to focus a little bit on the price to operating cash flow, because this is sort of the yardstick I was using when I was looking at Amazon and Google. And I guess the question is, with Amazon and Google both being closer to 20 price to operating cash flow, will Nvidia be able to grow their operating cash flow 3 times the speed? Because that's really, I think, what is suggested by this. Or it could be a matter of, well, they don't have the same amount of capex, so more of that operating cash flow just immediately becomes free cash flow. And I get that, but right now, Amazon especially is at this point where their capex is going to be such a smaller and smaller percentage of their overall revenue that the operating cash flow and free cash flow will start to reach a point where they might get much closer aligned. Maybe not quite as closely as with Nvidia here, but I sit here and I say, is Nvidia going to really outpace something like Amazon by that much? I have trouble getting my head around that, which is why I do currently have Amazon, but I'm not quite there on Nvidia. It should come as no surprise that the analysts rate this as a strong buy. It seems like anytime a stock does really, really well and just blows all the expectations out of the water over a period of time, analysts instantly go to strong buy, almost regardless of how much the price has already run up in the meanwhile. So I take it with a grain of salt. Of course, market's at its absolute enthusiasm maximum. Nvidia is basically viewed as invincible by a large segment of the population right now. including analysts and so forth. So be careful just going off of the whole strong buy rating. I have other companies with strong buy ratings, and they haven't like just gone up in a, up and to the right at a 45-degree angle since buying them. So just keep that in mind. Now, I do think the high forecast of 200, it might be achievable, really, with how if they have a couple of really, really super strong quarters that beat the ever higher expectations again. Yeah, the enthusiasm is such where you could see a big run up again over the next year in the stock price. I'm not saying that's not possible, but I do think that, like, at some point, at the scale that they're at, how many more doubles and triples can they possibly have left in them before the market cap is just outrageously rich? That's a question that is on my mind for sure. Now, to be 100% fair here, they have had a couple instances where they've done triple-digit jumps in earnings. However, you can see that after 2024, it's expected to sort of decelerate down to something like 33%, according to at least those analysts covering out through 2025. And then out through 2026, that even further expected to decelerate into the mid-teens. Going out further than that is usually questionable, because the further out you go in time, the harder it is to be accurate. Now, there is some cyclicality to this business, so I would be concerned that maybe there could be like a revenue pullback somewhere. Now, of course, it's easy to ignore right now, but it's true that AMD and Intel both still exist. And if they come out with anything that's kind of comparable here, competition could eat into the generous margins that Nvidia has. Like, there's things that can go not well for them. And I think that the current price does assume that things just continue to go really exceptionally well. I'll take a quick look at a DCF calculation, which, by the way, the ones I've run in the past on this have ended up proving completely worthless as far as, really giving you a clear picture. So it's a thought exercise more than anything. I wouldn't make any decisions based just on the DCF on something like this. Okay, so to more or less justify today's price on this stock, we have put in that they will achieve what the projection is for 2024 EPS, that there will be no hiccups there. Now, they could beat this expectation, by the way, which would change all of this calculation. All right. And Nvidia definitely has a history of outperforming people's expectations, so just think about that a little bit. Now, we're using the 10% discount rate. Give them credit for their their little tangible book value they've got. But anyway, today's price, you get pretty close to it by giving them credit for a decade of 20% EPS growth. They would double it multiple times over the next 10 years at that rate. And then slowly decelerating, you would get down to a terminal stage where they would just basically in perpetuity or whatnot, they would grow 7.5%. So like a mid to high-ish single digit growth rate on their EPS after that. And there have been businesses that have definitely been able to grow at those rates pretty long term, especially in a growth industry that they catch in the beginning and continue to be a leader in. Think like Apple. They basically invented the smartphone, and they've been a leader in that space ever since. And they've, in a lot of years, it generally exceeded people's expectations long enough to where it's pretty much just the expectation from them now. And when they don't, people are massively disappointed. So it's definitely not impossible that Nvidia justifies today's price. but a lot has to go right and very little has to go wrong. Do you feel safe that that happens from here? Do we think that no competition, no like substantial competition from Intel or AMD really threatens their margins? Do we think that there won't be any kind of cyclicality? Do we think that AI is for sure not any kind of a bubble? These are the questions that are on my mind. Do we think that this is a better deal than one of the other mega caps like Amazon or Google? That's another question. So these are just things that are going around in my head as I look at this, and I'm just not there getting into Nvidia here. If the pullback became more substantial and it got to the point where it seemed like they're likely to do better than what their price is starting to suggest, then okay, I'll start kind of considering it. But here I'm not quite there. I'm not sure how much of it going forward is reality versus hype, but that could just be that I don't really understand what the future really holds within this space, and that's okay. I can't understand everything. Please do me a favor and like the video for the algorithm, subscribe to help grow the audience. Make sure you join my Discord. Link is in the description. Also follow me on Twitter, or X as we call it, at Mr. Macho Mog. Link in the description there as well, as I am trying to grow my followers on X as well as here on YouTube. And consider becoming a member if you want to support me directly. And catch me every Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Cash Flow Kings Live. Link in the description to that channel as well.